Hi, good evening, Vasanthara.
Hello.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you? Are we
I'm all-
live now?
yeah, I think we are. Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay, so 1 second, right? Just
Yeah.
give me a second.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So, shall we start if you are comfortable?
Yeah, I am comfortable.
Okay.
Okay, so I should share my screen, right?
Yes, you can, but first we'll give a short introduction to our
Oh,
viewers. Okay.
yeah,
That's it.
definitely.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for the second day uh, of this webinar conducted by IET's student chapter here at BIT Mesra. For the introductions, I'm Sarah, and I'll be your host for this session. And for the speaker, we have here this amazing Vasanthara Shukla, who is a final year BTech student at the NLM Institute of Information Technology. And she is. She's a great person. I'm so inspired from all reading her LinkedIn bio. She's a member at technical staff at VMware, and she's also an organizer at GDG Lucknow and ambassador at WTM. So that's pretty impressive, and I'm really inspired to go through your bio from the LinkedIn. So okay, then. This was it for the introduction. Whenever you feel like you can start. And for the audience, I would like to inform you that you can use the comment section to ask away any question, and we can have for last 15 minutes we can have a Q&A session. So you can ask away your questions there, and I'll be dictating them to Vasundhara. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, it is. Good.
Okay. So, yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Sarah. And I would reiterate on the fact that I'm currently not in the final year. I just passed out in July. So now I am working as a full time engineer as a software developer in VMware.
I'm
And
really sorry for that. I'm really sorry
yeah,
for
it's no
that.
issues, no issues. Yeah,
Okay,
because
cool.
I was in the final year, so it's been a couple of months now since I passed out. And yeah, you correctly said that I am leading the GDG Lucknow community, and I'm also the WTM ambassador. And thanks once again for the wonderful introduction. And hello, everyone. Hello, the members of GDG Ranchi and BIT Mesra. I'm glad to be here and address you all in this session. So, as you must have seen the title through the thumbnail, it is about the perfect resume and the open source contribution that helps you make it the perfect resume. So, I just chose this very title itself because, there's nothing called a perfect resume. So, it's a catch there. There's no such thing called a perfect resume. You can uh, just have multiple searches, and you can go through the internet to find out various tips and tricks how you should maintain a resume, especially while you apply for companies. I'm talking about the people who are into going to apply into internships, and for those who are currently in their final year going through college campus placement processes or even off campus. So you might see like millions of articles regarding this particular topic, and I'm sure like these are really confusing. See, I was there in your face like a year back, and I was in the similar situation. So One thing that I analyzed after applying through college placements and also off campus, it wasn't that I just applied through college placements, I did apply off campus as well, is that uh, you should always think of what the recruiter wants. Okay, so it's not pretty much about how you can like fill in everything that you have in your resume. You should just think about what role you are applying for and what the recruiter actually wants. Sorry, I just froze on this slide. Yeah. So yeah, so basically draft yourself a communication strategy. Okay, so communication strategy, I mean, is understanding yourself. What are you looking for in a job, and what are your current credentials? Like, for example, you are a third year student, okay, and you are leading some club in your college, or you are the founder of some coding club. Maybe you are leading the CSI chapter or something else. So these are your current volunteering experiences. Okay, what are your capabilities means your skill sets, like what tech you're interested in. For I'm talking about the SDE roles. If not tech, like for example you have interest in maybe UI UX or like poster and all of that stuff, so you can like put in those details, what softwares you know how to use. There are many complex software, so these are the things you need to put in one single place. You need to make notes about that, what you actually know about things, and then you have to carefully draft it under different sections in your resume. Okay, build capabilities and skills. For example, uh, I am someone who knows three or four programming language. For example, I know Python, I know Java, and I know Go. I have certain idea about C++, but I'm not particularly very sure. So I would not go and add that language in my resume. Or maybe I'm talking about language, which is a very basic example. You can take ML or AI. You did one particular project in maybe your during a subject, or maybe a personal project, or you combined it with a group, and you just did one project, and then you cannot be sure that you are proficient in that particular job, particular area of tech. So you need to be careful while you add some skills and your capabilities in the resume. Only add those that are actually something that you are confident about. Okay, so network efficiently is like, this is something out of context, but I added it in this particular slide as to how you can basically promote your resume. So while I'm talking about off campus placements as well, so how can you promote that particular thing is through your batchmates, your alumni. Like I saw there was a YouTube live yesterday as well, and today also there is another speaker coming after me. So all these people are your college for present students or alumni. So there are more people as well. Go like connect with them, partner with them, share your skills with them, ask them for opportunities. I am sure like people are there to help you. So like you need to be perfect in your networking skills, if not your coding or some other skills, because you cannot be perfect in all the fields, but you can develop these skills with time. But you should first start with your networking skills. Okay, so this is a pretty decent example of a resume template, I would say. A single page having a summary, your highlights, experience. See, there are multiple templates. You can go on with like anything that is available, but make sure you limit it to 1 or 2 pages, not more than that. Just make sure you have the relevant details in it. Okay, put in your experience. If you're a college student, you can put in your ta-ship experience, if you have done any ta-ship or you have done any paid internships, if you want to put it under experience, or you have the internships column in your resume. Okay, and education, start with the descending order. Go with your college first, then your class 12th, and then class 10th. So these are pretty simple and straightforward details. Okay, so as we saw in the previous style, it's about summary. Okay, what should you add in your summary? Okay, so summary basically what how you would describe yourself in maybe one or two sentences. Okay, and how your resume helps in bringing out your aspect. You can definitely not add everything in your resume. There are things like sometimes recruiters ask, no, tell me something which is not there in your resume. But your summary should have that highlight, that overall coverage, the adjectives that could define you. For example, I have posted this particular thumbnail here which says creative, results focused professional with a track record of initiative and leadership in increasing efficiency, cutting costs and streamlining processes. See, this is like a very fancy and beautified line. I'm not saying that you always go on with these heavy words in your taglines or your summaries, but then use in adjectives, as many adjectives as possible. They could be very simple, you don't you need to use fancy English, but then don't write it in the first person. That's one thing I would say. Don't write it in the first person, like I am a creative, result focused professional, like not like that. You can just go with straightforward with the adjectives, what defines you as a person. Okay, okay, so this is a very I would say a fact that a recruiter or an HR or like the company you apply to gets thousands of resume. Okay, when there is a hiring season, they get thousands of resume. How do your resume gets like, they get your resume, they just skim through it, like they just see through it what is there in it, and if they catch an eye to something that they might be looking for, they like keep your resume aside. How, why do you think like there are people who are really I would say good at something, but still they don't even clear the resume round or the resume shortlisting? There are times we have seen those cases as well. So that happens because the resume is not properly well structured, and that is because it does not catch like, hence it does not catch the resume recruiter's eye. So it's, for example, a recruiter is looking for something in I would say maybe Kubernetes. Okay, Kubernetes is a required skill for that particular job or position you're applying for. Okay, and you missed that in your skill section, but you knew it. Okay, you had an idea about Kubernetes, but you did not write. You maybe wrote some broader term for it or something like that. So they look for keywords, what they are looking for in your resume. Okay, might be possible that you are not sure in that particular skill set, then I would say leave it, because you should apply just in case they call you and they ask if you're interested or not. But if you're confident in that particular skill, just maintain it properly and you should add it. So because they don't have time to look into each and every resume, they don't take 10 minutes to read the full resume. They just have like maybe 10 or 20 seconds to go through it. They see some keywords, if they are there, then okay, selected, next round interview, and so on. But you should be careful of these things and you should highlight your top qualities in the resume. Okay, so what turns recruiters off when reading resumes? So these I am particularly captured some responses that is not appreciated or not welcomed by people who are actually recruiting. Okay, so let's go through these. So as I said, like limit maybe to one page, at max two pages. So long cover letters, no one has time to go through those. Okay, honestly speaking, and I also used to do that. Like I sent a cover letter while applying to off campus, but no one really has the time to go through it. If your resume has those key points, that's pretty enough. Okay, excessive cosmetics, substituting form of content. Okay, so as I said, it should be pretty decent and covering all the aspects, but then it shouldn't be overloaded as well. For example, you did maybe like some 10 projects, which includes your group projects as well. You partnered and you um, were in a group and you made a resume there, oh sorry, a project there. Okay, so there you possibly did like 10 or 20% of the work, and still you have it in your resume. Have it when you don't have other projects, I would say. Like, if you already have some individual projects in the in your resume, you have listed those, then I would suggest don't go with the group projects, don't add those things until and unless they are actually adding value to the job you're applying for. For example, in that project you worked in a particular skill that is essential for that particular job. Okay, and a photo, this I would say maybe it's pretty subjective. You can, or you may or may not have, it's not a necessity, or you might be thinking like, okay, if you don't have it then what. So it's like, some people suggest that you put in a photograph, but then it's totally your wish. Okay. uh, what turns recruiters off is also this: when your resume has no research. Okay, you don't look for the employer's needs. That is what I said. Go for something that is described in your job description, that is described in your eligibility criteria, the skill sets that they need, and what the company is actually working on. So you should actually research on those things first, and then put in the skills that you have in common with that job profile. Okay, you should not be like, okay, they require probably AI/ML and you have nothing to do with AI/ML, you have not worked on it, still you add in there. So that is also not the case. But also, if you have things in common with the job posting and the eligibility criteria, you should definitely add it. Also, yeah, please put in the dates and the tenure for which you have done your internship or your education section. Put in your awards and recognitions. When did you get awarded? When were you the volunteer? When were you something or the other? Just put in your dates. That gives it more substance, that okay, this person has not just put it for the sake of it. You have actually done that thing, because you cannot just show proofs to everything. It's just a written sentence. But adding dates, and especially if possible add with months, so that gives it some substance. Okay, this person has legitimately done this, or handled this particular position of responsibility. Okay. Also, maybe like, I would suggest go on with points, like bullet points in your resume. Don't go with paragraphs and all. So that is also a turn off, because they don't read long sentences. Okay, so this I have repeated earlier as well. What you should research, like your desired qualifications and skills, and key values and the word. So just go with the key aspects that is required in that particular job, and then write it in your resume. So for that, you can go on to the company websites, the career page, the job advertisement that you saw, or if you are applying on campus, then you should definitely ask if your training placement club or cell is not providing you with the relevant details, then ask them to forward those things that you are sure about what is actually required in it. Okay, so yeah, these action words is something like, just I added for the sake of it, that you can add in your summaries, and you can probably, I would say, m- make your resume look substantial. Not necessary, as I earlier repeated as well, like, not necessary that you go with fancy words, but then go with such words that you have accomplished something. For example, in your probably co-curricular activities or your awards and scholarships section, you write words such as accomplished, achieved, and maybe in your summary you can write you adapted to a particular situation, you are an adaptive individual, you collaborated with people. That could be there in your volunteering experiences. So use such terms in your sentences, in your bullet points, not like huge sentences obviously, but in your bullet points these words could be helpful. So I'll share the PPT with the respective hosts and organizers, so you can go through these. And yeah, this is also pretty much you all might be knowing that begin with your highest level of educational achievement, include your university or your school where you went, your branch, obviously which branch you are graduating or you are studying from, and your percentage or your GPA. Okay, and date, obviously as I said, date should be included in everything, not just education. Yeah, so this is what summarizes whatever I have said. Like this is the most crucial point I would talk about, that your resume should be intersection of your skills and your job details. For example, you are a person who has experience in web development, and you also have experience in data science, and a company visits that has that is actually looking for someone who has development experience, a full stack developer position probably comes to your place. So if you don't like, for example, you have so many skills on your plate, you have multiple projects, so go with only those that match the job requirements. You don't need to put your AI/ML skills in your resume for that particular recruiter. So in such a case I would suggest maybe draft more than one resumes. For example, two or three resumes. One could be for your web development skills if you have more than one skill, I'm just saying, and you're proficient and confident about those. So maybe draft two or three resumes as per the job requirements. And if you have no particular choice, I would say that you're not particularly looking just for a web dev job or just for a AI/ML job. Just an example, okay? And for those, I'm talking about the non-tech people who are not looking into the tech jobs related to software development or SRE roles. There you can actually add in your marketing internship experience, or maybe some courses you did online that can be related to those, or maybe content writing is one of its kind. You can have your resume style like that. So this is pretty much the thing, that it should be an intersection of what the job requirement is and what your skill sets include. Okay, yeah. So one section that people generally miss is the honors and activities section in the resume. So you go with your summary, you go with your experience, internships, projects, education details, and then you probably end with your contact information or something. So this section is generally missed, and I think this is the most valuable section when people need to see what else you have done, what else you are capable of giving to the company you are getting onboarded into. So they do look for it, that what other qualities this person has exhibited in the past. So you should definitely put in your awards. For example, you might be an NTSC scholar, just an example again. So you can put in that. Like I would suggest go for only the awards and scholarships that you have after your class 10th, and that I'm talking about only the undergraduate people here. If you are from the postgraduate background, if maybe anyone is here on this stream, then I would suggest maybe not go with even class 10th and 12th accomplishments. Go with what you did in your postgrad and your undergraduation. So please do include these things that give your resume some spark, and also like you are separated from the crowd. Okay, so this section definitely is going after your internships and projects. So mostly the last section, and it can be moved up. Like you can put it above, maybe for example, your projects. If you have a very important accomplishment to share, and that may be relevant to your job profile. Okay. So, yeah, as I said in the summary as well, you should not use your first pronoun. Don't start with I did this, I did that. Your name is at the top of the resume page. So, who else would you be talking about if not yourself? So, it's just that you use adjectives and adverbs throughout in sentences and in your bullet points. Don't use first pronouns in the resume. Okay, these are just examples. So, as you can just go through these, I won't take much time on this. Yeah, so action words. So, as I said, like how can you change your sentences into something that catches the eyes of the recruiters? So this is a pretty simple example. For example, was the head of a team that organized such and such hackathon at such and such place. Okay, so instead of was the head of the team, you can just use a simple word managed. And those words that I had used earlier in the previous slide where I had some listed some words such as accomplished or volunteered. So managed is one such word. So instead of like was the head of a team, you can just go with managed a team. Okay. This is another example. Keep your sentences short and don't worry about the fragments. Okay. So instead of writing lengthy sentences and paragraphs, go with and break your sentences into parts. And I would suggest maybe limit a particular accomplishment or an internship description, max 2 to 3 lines, not more than that. Okay. Yeah. So for work experience, internships, and projects, include positions that you have held, which are related in the job that you are seeking, obviously, and be creative with the section of your resume by describing and emphasizing your experience in the most relevant way possible. So this is particularly the most important thing. For example, you did a research intern in maybe some organization, okay, and you were asked to develop a full-fledged working prototype of something, and there was more than one skill required in that. You should probably like list that internship experience or the project that you did and highlight the things that are actually matching the job criteria. For example, you did use some framework and that is there in your job criteria, and framework is just not the only thing while developing a web dev project. So but you can use it as your first thing while describing it. For example, um, maybe I would say a management portal, like something I would say like IRCTC, as you might have heard, that website is there. So, what all can be used in it and what is common with the job requirements? So, you should put in that skill set as the first thing in your description of that particular job or internship. Okay, so this slide is particularly related to how resumes are shortlisted when everyone is not a 4 star or more on these competitive coding platforms. I'm just talking about SD profiles here. So just take it as a general thing. This was just a tagline question, okay? So, yeah, these are some particular points which give you an edge. And if you're not totally into competitive coding but you want an SDE job, so what this can be done through your resume, through your projects, your open source contribution, and extracurricular activities that come into picture. So I'm particularly focused on open source here because, like, obviously this whole event is about Hacktoberfest, and Hacktoberfest season is going on, and everyone knows how open source is on the boom. So open source is one thing which I have not covered till now because I have a separate section dedicated to it, and obviously every speaker might be speaking on this particular topic, but this gives your resume an edge, and that is why I am emphasizing on this particularly as a separate topic. Okay. I've added the second point as alter CV template or overleaf for resume. This is my personal belief. Like I would go on and use these templates if I had to build a resume now. So you can go on with anything, but these are just some examples for your reference. If you want to build a resume now, you can try these. Okay. uh, Candidates who are involved in open source platforms such as GitHub, and then as GitLab is there are many others who are involved in those, get a significant edge, as I have said. And add in the awards and recognition. So these are some key points that I mainly highlighted throughout. So this just summarizes everything. Don't include your social media handles like Twitter or Instagram. You can definitely go and include your LinkedIn if it is very essential. Just don't the avoid putting in Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, which is not relevant to your job or your particular skill set. That's for personal use. Just don't put it here on the resume because it's very professional. Okay. Limit the size to one page or maximum two page, and keep the bio crisp and short. Yeah. Okay, so coming to the next section, as I said, it's about open source contributions. Yesterday, also, you had a speaker that talked about how to get into GSOC, how to apply for it, and everything. So, some of you might be knowing stuff related to it. I would be very generic, not talking about any program in general. So, this would just be insight on how you can start on it. Maybe it is overlapping, but then it's good to hear things that people might have different perspectives on. So, yeah. Okay. So, open source contributions, as I said, that they do give you an edge, especially I'm talking about the market leaders. I'm not talking about startups here. They might or might be not preferring, but I'm talking about the market leaders. Everyone is looking for those who has contributed into open source. Not necessarily that you won't be selected if you don't have any open source contribution till date, or you might get into a company without that as well. But I'm just saying it gives you an edge, and it is definitely something people look out for. Okay. So, what should be your motivation behind contributing? Okay, these are some key points that came into my mind. This is just like everything is just personal opinion and what I've heard from others, because I have started working in a company and I've seen people into open source as well, and what they think, why they did start, and their whole process. Okay, so you get to work with the distributed geolocated teams. For example, open source, if there is a project, it's not just limited to your particular college, right? It's widespread throughout the world. You interact with different people throughout demographies. You interact with them and you get to learn a lot. So networking, one thing, and a rewarding way to learn tech and build experience in just about any skill you can imagine. So, for example, uh, you might not be proficient in a particular skill, but you want to learn. So, obviously, the first thing what you do is go to like these study website like GFGs or Lead Code, or maybe YouTube channels that teach you about a particular tech, or do some courses on Coursera. Okay, but then this is another way. You go through the actual working example of a project on how that particular tech works. Obviously, you should have an idea beforehand, but the practical example you can get through these open source projects. Okay, there is no tech stack barrier. Obviously, it's not limited to one particular tech stack. Open source is widespread, and any technology you want to take in, you can pick up and start contributing there, and meet people who are interested in similar things. Obviously, once you start contributing, or even before you do that, you can actually network and contact people who have worked in that particular field and who are maybe starting along with you. Maybe today, a friend of yours decides that he or she would be working, he or she is thinking of contributing into some open source and learning about this particular tech, and you have similar thoughts, maybe partner up with them, give each other tasks. Okay, by next week we'll have researched on this particular topic, and then we'll go through the projects that are available on those and try taking in the simplest possible problem. Okay, maybe start with simple problems, and then you will obviously get hold of the tech or the project, what it is actually about. Okay, so you can partner up with people and then start contributing. Okay, benefits of open source, see, there are numerous benefits, but talking about the personal benefits that you can have, first and foremost is learning to write a cleaner code. Okay, once you see and go through open source projects, there is, like, it's such a vast thing to actually explore. I would say, like, when I have been through projects that are, I am personally working on like cloud and Kubernetes domain. So there I have seen how vast it is and everything. And people are very particular, the maintainers, the contributors, and the first timers also. People there are very particular, and everything takes the time to get in. Obviously, that's one point that might be a turn down, but then it's a learning curve. Okay, so things take time to go in. For example, a comment might be missing, or a comment is not properly written in your code. Okay, people will even review that and ask you to change it, because they want their project and their open source like project to be perfect. So people are very particular there, and this is something you will learn while you do it. That is not just about writing a particular function and getting things into working. It's about the testing, it's about the documentation, it's about the way, the reading style of your code, how readable is your code. Okay, so you learn to write there, you learn to avoid redundant things. For example, a similar function has been written, and that is using, like, there are probably like 70% of the code is same. Okay, you're just probably changing the endpoints or the return types or something like that. So you would be asked to avoid code redundancy. So these are some things that I am telling you from personal experience, and how you learn to maybe make your thing look better, and this will probably and definitely it will help you. Okay, so improve the software you rely on, improve existing skills, and also learn new skills. Okay, so pretty straightforward. So you learn your coding skills, you improve on them, you learn new tech stacks while contributing. And it's not just limited to, like, it's as simple as just knowing one particular language, and it gets more complex once you start picking up complex issues from the project that you are interested in. Okay, so it starts very simple, and how you want to take it is your decision totally. Okay, and obviously you get recognition when you are in a global community and you have done things, you get recognized. So that's something that does not need to be said. And learning people skills, obviously when you see there are, for example, 400 plus contributors to a big project. Okay, and you need your pull requests or your merge requests to be reviewed by people, how you would approach them, that you get to learn. Okay, so that is something, if you start now in your college itself, that will really help you once you are working in the corporate. So this is one thing, and helps scheme up the career ladder. Obviously that's the one thing I've been reiterating since the start, how open source is beneficial and how MNCs and all are looking for this particular thing. And again, I'm saying it's not a necessity, but then it is definitely something that ups your game. Yeah, so with benefits, with the motivation comes challenges as well while you are contributing to open source. And those challenges are, first, the good long running reviews. Okay, this is something pretty dicey, I would say. it does give you frustration at times. For example, you pulled made a request that your code gets merged and you opened a pull request, okay, but then the maintainers and the other people, the owners, are very particular about that code, as I said in the previous point of writing neater codes. So they are particular, and they might be things that they come on with the discussion after seeing your code. Okay, this could have been implemented in some particular way. So not necessary that you open a pull request and you think your work is done. No, there are reviews that take over a month as well. So for example, you might open a request today and it takes a month to be merged because there are simultaneous changes going on. People might be thinking, okay, this could be done in a better way, or simply they would expect you to write a better code of that particular thing, maybe some other thing. So this is obviously, it's frustrating, but then the brighter side is you get to learn a lot, and obviously at the end it's all about learning. So also one thing, when you just start with it, it's not a cakey ride that everything you do and every pull request you put in gets merged. Okay, so you might get some rejections in the beginning, and maybe some project owners or maintainers would directly contribute and say, okay, like, there have been instances that they have directly said to people that you don't need to contribute here, maybe this is not the right space for you. So please don't be disheartened if such a thing happens with you. Okay, it's not particularly your job to please people, it's your job to learn. And if not some in one particular thing, there are million other things that you can do. There are thousands and thousands of open source projects. You can try your hand in anything, in any tech you're interested. Okay, so with the long running codes and maybe this rejections in the beginning, you might lose the motivation, as I talked about earlier. But what you need to do is don't lose your heart, don't get disheartened, and keep up the game that you are here for learning. And whatever another person says is something that is not your thing to do. Okay, you are not here to please people, you are just here to learn. Again, I'm repeating this, so don't lose that motivation. Okay, and when you start into something, for example, you went into the cloud domain and now you want to see how it works and everything. So when you see a big repository, when where there are lakhs and lakhs of lines of code, okay, it's a huge task. Like, okay, I would say even I don't understand like more than 20% of the things that I might be working on. I might take a part of it. I might be not understanding what this particular function or this particular directory is about. Okay, but then it's fine. No, you just started it, and you are not expected to be knowing everything. Okay, you might face issues because there is no one guiding you, but then you can obviously look for people who can guide you, the maintainers or the owners. If you show them interest, they would definitely come and help you. So this for fourth point is a challenge, but then you then you can obviously go and ask people, and you should definitely do that. Okay, so this is pretty much what you need to focus on, guidelines on how to start. So this could be basically like you can just start with knowing what's, whys, and whens. You need to answer these questions to yourself. Why do you need to do that particular project? Why, when do you need to start? And I would suggest you only start when things are clear on your table. When you have probably like 10 other things in your plate, I would say don't start with that right now, because it is a time taking process and it's a complex thing. Okay, find the relevant projects, like go for the projects that uh, a tech, like related to the tech you are actually aware about, until and unless you want to learn something new. Okay, start reading the design documents. For example, you went into GitHub and you searched for a particular project, okay, and at first you might get nothing, and it happens with everyone who starts, okay. So what you should do is start with the documentation, read that, okay. If you don't understand it, go through Google, maybe things might get clear from there. If not, contact the people who have already contributed. You get the list of people who have made changes to the design document itself. So ask them, contact them through Slack channels or maybe other socials that you might get, okay. Start contributing in the documentation area. So pretty simple advice, that you might not be that proficient in coding for that particular project, you might not know things, but then you can obviously, how you can contribute is start contributing through the documentation. There is documentation to every project. Every huge project has some documentation where you can contribute and give in your part. For example, improving the language itself maybe, or adding some key points that they might have missed in it. So this is something you can start with, and this is also counted as a contribution. Your first contribution can be just changing a sentence in the design document or the documentation that defines the project, okay. Then attend regular meetings. For example, uh, these open source projects are maintained by a number of people, okay. There is not just like 10 or 12 people maintaining these. The huge projects have like hundreds of people maintaining those, and they have like regular weekly meetups related to what new functionality they want to develop, or regarding the issues that they have currently on the plate to solve, okay. So before even starting with the documentation and learning, you should try and attend these meetings. These regular meetings are really important, and they will help you understand how the process is working, what they are discussing about, what is presently the issue going on with that particular project, okay. So these things are really important. Ask in the meetings, ask in the Slack channels, that what good first issue can be given to you. If you are confident in that technology or the language that this thing has been coded upon, you can ask for the good first issues. And you can also search in the repositories with the label good first issues, and you can pick up those, okay. Look for help wanted or good first issues labels, and obviously join Slack and Discord channels, and ask the maintainers and code owners for help, okay. So the toughest hurdles to cross is basically asking, okay. So people might think how stupid they would look if they ask regarding a particular thing that they might think is pretty easy, but then you're not understanding. So don't go with that thing in your mind, okay. Just think that you just started and no one is expecting you to know everything, okay. You can ask silliest doubts to the people, so you just need to open up regarding that, okay. Project selection is really important. For example, you get into a project and you start working and making changes without really interested in it, and without thinking that it will be beneficial for you, then that becomes a problem, because once you have already contributed and then you lose interest, and then you come out of it, then you go back again into some other project. So that's a time taking process. Again, you have to start from the scratch again, network with people, ask for them, ask, go through the design document. So it's not a day's process that you just come out. So be very selective at first, and then only go into making changes, okay. Understanding the projects, as I said, read the documentations, read the PR discussions, which is really important. So when people put in their pull requests, okay, those requests that get merged, and maybe those are something related to what functionality you might be adding or some changes that you might be doing, go through the discussions, go through the reviews that people have given, so that you don't repeat those mistakes again, and you are obviously aware what is expected from you, okay. And picking the areas and components of the projects that are supposedly you have understood and they that are related to the thing that you have previously worked upon. Okay, so the key to this is time management and consistency, because open source is a time taking process. You have to give in some amount of time in a week or so apart from your daily activities and processes, and being consistent is really important. For example, once you lose the motivation and you think you cannot do this, then I would say it's very difficult going back into that thing. Okay, so I've added some resources here which you can go through, that gives you an idea about how you can start contributing. I won't go on to each and every link to take time. And before that, just want to share another thing, how you can actually go and see for the calendar invites and the meetings where people actually have meeting. For example, I would go on the Kubernetes GitHub. One second. Uh, okay. So this is the Kubernetes GitHub mm, place. Okay. So what you can do is go to this community section. Like, I'm just giving an example. You might have for other projects as well. Go to this community section. Okay. Here you see there are different SIGs, and there is cloud provider, there is documentation. We have the documentations. Okay, there is network is a particular stream, there is something called cluster in that. I just, if you go to the documentation thing, okay, community has in the details of how you can collaborate with people who are working in this particular directory or something. Okay, so you have the links of meetings here. Okay, so you can attend the meetings and you can check which time zone is this meeting going on, and you can convert it into your time zone and see if you're comfortable in attending those meetings. Because I said that this is really important while you go through the process, like you should attend meetings to actually know what things are going on in place. Okay, you can contact these people, their handles are there, who are maintaining this particular thing. You can contact the technical leads to give you some issues. You, they might direct you to some other people, so that is totally fine. And because there are people who would eventually help, because they also need people who can contribute. Okay, then join the Slack channels. You can go and join the Slack channel and the mailing list, so that you are in loop onto what is going on if you cannot attend meetings, so those things can be discussed there. And then the GitHub teams are there, like teams have been made who can actually go, you can approach people in these teams and ask for your doubts and stuff. Okay, so this is something that you will find in the community tab, and maybe there are other things as well. So you can go, community is one such thing. Then you have repositories created under the Kubernetes space, so that is like you can explore. I am not going to take much time on that. And yeah, pretty much that's the example. And yeah, okay, so yeah, we are at the end of the presentation. So can connect with me on the socials, and now we can go for the Q&A if anyone has any questions.
Vasundhara, it was a really great session. So for the Q&A, we'll move on to Q&A. And we have Sohadya Chatterjee, and his question is it necessary to have internships in our resume? What if I haven't had any? Is it a problem?
Okay, it's not a problem, first of all. Like, it's obviously, if you don't have any internships, it's not a problem. You are a college student, and companies are not looking for that you already have a work experience. Obviously, if you have it, then it's advantageous. But if you have the required skill sets that they are looking for in the job postings, is not definitely not a sure shot thing, and it's not a problem at all. So don't think that you are behind people who have done some internships. I had done internships, but they were not possibly in the core software development field. Okay, you can go and check my LinkedIn, you can see my experience section. I had no internship experience related to something I'm working on at present. I had internships related to marketing, content development. So those were the areas I'd worked upon, but they were not significant to the current profession. So that is totally not, I would say, requirement that you should have an internship experience. You are just a college undergraduate person, so no one is asking for that.
Great. So the next question is, I guess most of the people from non-tech background ask this question. Like I am also from non-tech background, so I sometimes face this question. So this is it. What would you suggest to someone who is from a non-tech background but has been an avid coder or programmer? How would you recommend them to prepare themselves to go out and get their dream job?
Okay, so they are from the non-tech background, but they have done like they have practiced coding and they know about
Yeah.
programming and stuff. Okay,
Mhm.
so um, that is again similar to my case. I did enjoy coding. I was into coding. I knew things. I knew data structures. I tried doing some projects, but then the background I had developed in through internships and all wasn't particularly tech. As I said, I did content internships. I did marketing internships. I did some communication related. So that was my branch. I was in communication and computer science. That branch was there. So I did a communication which was related to electronics. I did those internships, but I never did a core tech internship. So if you can see that my background wasn't something related to core computer science CSIT. Okay, so but then I had interest. Sorry for the thing, the electricity has gone,
That's
but
fine. That's fine.
yeah, I hope you are able to see me.
I guess we can.
Yeah, okay. So I would say from personal example experience, if you are good into something, if you have knowledge of that particular tech, you are interested in coding, just brush up your skills, try and practice those things more. Your background is necessarily not important. Like you might there might be people who would have that background. They might have interned in some huge tech company, maybe in their second year or third year, but then if they have lost touch with the roots, like for example they don't know anything about OS networking, which people look into while asking, while you go through tech rounds. Okay, data structures is one thing, then operating system, networkings, and computer organization architectures. These are some subjects I'm reiterating that are important, but if they have no touch base to those things, they won't be selected. So if you are actually interested in getting a tech job, even if you don't have a background, you just need to be owning up to your skills and you should start brushing on those things.
Okay, great advice. So next up we have Akash, and his question is, can I have separate resumes for companies of separate fields but justifies my interest?
Okay, so this particular thing I covered in the presentation as well, that you should definitely have multiple resumes if you have multiple skill sets. Where, for example, a company that is looking for a full stack developer, and you have full stack development experience and skill sets, but you are also interested into Flutter or Android or AIML, those fields. So you should probably not include them until and unless there is space remaining in your resume. For example, your one page is also not getting fulfilled. So you should not include those things. You should just go on with your full stack development, internship experience, projects, and skill sets related to those. And then you can definitely have multiple resumes depending on your qualities and the companies that you're applying to, which might be offering versatile positions, not subjective to like every company is offering full stack developer. There might be companies who are offering data science roles and all that stuff. So you can definitely have in handy 2 to 3 resumes depending on what you are interested in and what you're going for.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Akash. So, next question is what are some disadvantages of open source systems?
Okay, so disadvantages, I would say, obviously there is no disadvantage in the learning curve, because even despite the long hard working hours you put in, there is something to gain at the end. The only disadvantage, I would say lack of interest. Like people start losing interest when things are not coming their way. For example, your multiple requests of pull requests or merge requests are getting rejected. You are having long discussions, people are not really appreciating what you are doing. So you tend to feel disheartened on that stuff. But then I would say don't, like, it's not a disadvantage, and you might think okay, presently things are not working well for you, but at the end they will definitely work if you are passionate enough. So I won't say I see any particular disadvantage in it. I obviously see it as a networking opportunity, a learning opportunity, getting to brush up your skills, getting to know people, get learning to write cleaner code. So no particular disadvantage as such, but then you tend to feel demotivated. But if someone is demotivated, then come to me. I'll take care. So don't get demotivated and don't be harsh on yourself. Maybe take breaks if your things are not working particularly fine. Take breaks, relax for a bit, maybe try changing your project, try changing your tech stack if you're not having that motivation or you're not interested in working. So that's one thing I would say.
Okay, so last question. It's the last question of the session. So, how can developers make money with open source projects?
Okay, so developers making money with open source projects, that is something I'm not quite familiar with, and neither do I have heard. So maybe I'm not the right person to answer it, because I have always looked to open source as an opportunity to learn and grow. I have not thought of it as a monetary aspect, like it would help me to gain something on the monetary aspect. So maybe I cannot answer that question. I won't be the right person to answer it. Maybe if someone else would might have heard this thing, they can definitely go, and if they know people who have done this, I'm not particularly sure on this.
All right, no problem. So that was
Yeah.
the end of our Q&A session, and
Yeah.
so we'll quickly wrap up. And so it was a really great learning experience for the audience and for me as well. Like all those important points you mentioned about making a great resume and open source projects. Emphasizing on the aspect that we should be learning rather than looking for that monetary aspect of it. So that was a really great learning experience from you. You are such an experienced individual, and so it was a really great experience, a learning experience, and I reckon our audience enjoyed it too. So that's it. So we hope to see you again and definitely collab again. It was really great having you here. Thank you for joining us again. So thank you.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, GDG, and thank you, VIT Mesra, and the whole organizing team. I'm really glad I could be a part of this, and looking forward to more such sessions.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Hello, Pratyush. So we'll be starting in a bit. Okay, like in 5 minutes. We'll wait for everybody to join in and okay. So
Cool.
yeah. Hi Pratyush, good evening. How are you?
Hi Sarah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm also good. So, where are you from?
Hi Pratyush, good evening. How are you?
I'm sorry, I
Hi.
think it's echoing. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's cool now.
Cool.
Okay, so it's now 5:40, so we can start. Okay, so good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us today, this beautiful evening. And for the introductions, I am Sarah, and I'll be your host today. And for the speaker, the second speaker of the session, we have Pratyush Agarwal, who is the founder of Code Asylum, and he has a lot of experience working with different companies such as DE Shaw and PaySafe and AO Pop. He's also involved in consulting startups and overseas clients in various areas such as backend platforms and big data and blockchain. And he's also a great speaker and motivator and has been hosting coding boot camps in various cities and on online platforms as well. So this is our speaker. Please welcome Mr. Pratyush Agarwal. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks a lot, Sarah, for calling here. And like it's always been a pleasure. Like coming back to college. Like I'm also like VIT Mesra pass out 16 batch. So it's always a lot of things that have similar mindsets, and where like you have also grown from. So yeah, thanks a lot for like calling.
Absolutely. We are thrilled to have you here.
Cool. So yeah, so about this session majorly, like I understand that people who are already coming to open source, like who are coming with that mindset that okay, open source is something that they want to contribute and they want to go into. It's obviously are the people who are a little different mindset going only towards industry. It's like like maybe you have seen, or you have like what I have seen a lot is so if you talk about a lot of startups and companies, big companies in out of India, like majorly US, you see a lot of Indians being there, as CEOs, like Microsoft, you see Google, you see Adobe, you see a lot of companies going there, and like they become CEOs over there. But there are very few, like I haven't at least heard of, and I haven't seen a lot that Indians becoming CTOs over there. So there is something that is like that is there, and that we are missing out in terms of growing at a global level. And that's what I feel is like technology, seeing with that perspective is being very different in what people out there sees versus people here sees. So yeah, so that is very important in terms of when you go inside a technology, any of it, you sometimes when in college, like you go for it because you want to get placements, or internships and all of that out of it. But when it comes to open source contribution, it is very important that you have to go inside the technology, and you have to write a lot of code. And especially in India, like for example in colleges, like people like not able to even start with Git, which is like the basic step, which is very important to collaborate any kind of code. So you have to like you have to go inside that silos, and uh, 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 that mindset that okay, like technology is something that you should look forward, or coding is something is look forward for. And placements and all of it, like like that comes around automatically. Like that is something like that you never have to hassle around. if you have that right mindset and the skill set that this technology or this coding or this development that's required. So and I feel Hacktoberfest is like, I have seen recently it has been started, and it has given an exposure to take first step towards open source. It's like a lot of, I have seen a lot of communities, a lot of platforms that provide, like the people who become good coder and have already contributed in open source a lot, and then they have to go towards it. There are a lot of platforms for that. I mean, Google Summer of Code, Facebook Hacker Cup, even there are a lot of Mozilla's open source contribution platforms that are there, or like communities that are there, but they all require a lot of efforts that people have already put in. So I feel that Hacktoberfest has always been in that initiative that, okay, like, first step is very important to make that motivation and that mass contribution towards technologies and open source, which I feel that Hacktoberfest is taking a great initiative in that. And that's why, like, like, you just have to, I think, like, you have to put some GitHub request, some pull requests, so that you understand that how to write and collaborate code using GitHub. Also, like, I feel that in open source, a very important aspect apart from writing code is, like, for example, you have a lot of code, like, in front of, like, there is a platform that people has made. You can think of any kind of a platform that people have already has constructed or built, and you have to change a feature out of it. You should know how to read that code, then in same dialect insert your code, and it has to be in coordination and in sync with all the services which are readily there in the platform, or like wherever your code will be associated with. So that becomes a very important aspect. And wherever you go, like, even in industries, even in companies, when you write a highly scalable code, or you when you write a code where, like that Amazon website is same, where like thousands of people have contributed their efforts to it, in writing the code. So you have to be in sync with those standardized and design patterns, and like that dialect that has been already there. So that is also very important aspect in open source contribution. Third is, like, for example, like, you go to a lot of networking meets, maybe you get college, you get alumni, through which you understand, okay, like, where should I go for my placements, what should I do to get good coding skills, all of it. Similarly, open source contribution gives you that community or that networking where people are looking forward to go inside the technology. It's like, irrespective of any of it, like where you are going for Facebook, Amazon, or Google. Apart from that, like, whether you want to go towards AIML, blockchain, like some interesting distributed systems, some big data technologies, or any new technologies, AR, VR kind of things, like evolving with time. So you get an exposure of those kind of people, and also they understand, for example, if you have those kind of contributions over somewhere, the people will see your code, will understand what you have written, what all things, where all things you are contributing, and accordingly you'll get those connections stronger. So that is also one of the great aspect which you don't find anywhere else. Like, it's like, whether you go, like, there is always a group kind of things, like, where you see yourself to be, you want to see yourself in a group of competitive programmers versus developers versus open source contributors versus industrialists versus like tech giants versus startups culture. So it's like, you want to see, like, you have to explore those things, and one of this is like open source. So yeah, like, so these all things is very important. So what I would say, like, I would like to discuss maybe a first step towards, for example, whenever you are going for your open source contribution, like, understand why GitHub is there, how it works, try to write your code, try to have your pull requests, try to, like, try to make a product in a group of 3 to 4 people, and like, contribute over there, so that you understand that why is that important. like for example, when you do a lot of coding and you write your code versus you merge in a code where a lot of things has been already written, you'll understand that what all problems has been there. And I was also listening to the last session which was going, and like she acknowledged a very important point that sometimes like people disheartened because of a lot of rejects in terms of when it happens, because it's a code that somebody has written or a lot of people has written with a lot of efforts and a lot of experience, and it happens sometimes. So don't get demoralized with that. It's like you find your place where your, like your code could be appreciated and could be successfully go into the production wala phase, because open source has actually created that vibe that okay, languages are, like readily anybody can use those languages. People can write any kind of libraries in that, any kind of features in that, and it's not compromised to a company. For example, the world's best coders can readily contribute over there, which makes it more powerful. So for example, you just assign that okay, like this is the only company which, for example, C sharp, like if might you have heard that a lot of till lot of time it was not open source and a lot of problems were there in terms of its functionalities and upgradations and evolution, all of it. Visual Studio, like a lot of Microsoft communities have those problems, but as when Satya Nadella came in, it's like it made it open source, which actually has, like that mindset and that growing and evolution of those languages, and those VS code that you see has a lot of evolution. So that is something, that's why like open source and all of it is very important, and it helps you obviously that learning curves, and it's not, like for getting placements or all of that stuff, but it is very important that how you work there. It improves a lot around that how you will be working in collaborative teams over there, how you will be an individual contributor. That's very important in a company, that because you have whenever you are writing code, you are not doing, like 10 people sitting around you and then you are coding. Even if you are in a company, it's like you have to code. You can take help, you can discuss a lot, you can uh, see about the things, read a lot, but when you code you have to be like yourself wala scene. So that individual contributor sense and individuality is very important in writing your best form of code, and then like putting it forward to a lot of people. That also makes a lot of effort, and like a lot of people appreciate that part of it. So yeah, like so I want to keep it like I key, like where you tell me like what all things like you wanted from open source, and what are some of the doubts that you guys are having in terms of open source contribution. uh, so yeah, like I want to hear I want to make it if possible kind of an interactive sessions where people can raise, like so that I also understand. It's like there are always a different set of audience which like have different level of understanding, and I want to be like get to that particular fine tuning with you, so that I can help you the best whatever I know at least. So yeah, like so yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that would be much better. It will help
right,
us to learn better. So,
right.
uh, first up, the question actually, we haven't started getting questions from our audience. So, I have a few questions, and I have picked up one question that our previous speaker brought it into the case. So, it was this that why is the big companies or established companies, tech giants, are open to your open source contributions, but not the startups. So like many people want to work in the startup, like intern, or maybe work as a employee and gain experience working in a startup environment. So what would you say about that?
So I would say that, see, like open source contribution and opening up, like different part of it. Like in a company, you have to make some efforts to raise a part of it. to make it available for the people and all of it. Like it requires a lot of people, it requires a lot of efforts, timings, money, every of those things. So obviously startups cannot afford, like in terms of that, paying some extra budget for like R&D sector especially, or open source sectors. And that's why, like, and also like whenever like startup recruits a lot of people, they have their some definitions and small goals of building those products which are already being built in technical aspects. It's not something that, like, you are creating a lot of new things, but to a lot of people it is new, because it's something that they are like firstly trying it out and all of those stuffs. And also like there is a very limitations of budgets and everything, and that's why like they maybe start some kind of events or something like that. But yes, like at a large scale they cannot put a lot of money or a lot of efforts in open source. But yes, like maybe if some uh, companies, for example, like I've seen a lot of YC companies. Like YC is like Y Combinator, which like in Silicon Valley a lot of startups get funded from. So they somehow have kind of a communities where, like you can go and contribute to their code. And also at very initial level they also don't want to give a complete access of code. And like for example, you told that a lot of people want to go and work towards the startups. I think that would be best way is, like you get some skills, show your skills directly over the GitHub or anywhere, and just share those link to any of HR or CXOs to that particular startup. uh, I would say that, like there is a right now in a that demand level that people need a lot of good developers and they don't have it. If you really feel that it's like you want to work for the startups, and you have that that zest of working towards it, I think you should go directly towards here. Like right now a lot of people are looking forward for those kind of skill set and mindsets.
Right. So, okay, then we have a question from our audience. It's from Akash. It says, can I sell open source projects by modifying it as per customer's need?
So obviously, like if it depends. Like for example, there are some open source products which has a MIT licensing and all of that, so you cannot use that particular code exactly, and like sell it to a in a commercialized product. uh, but yes, like you can use it. If it, like, you have to go through those licensing terms. Like it's like they actually make it exactness that, okay, like how can you do it, like if you want to get used for your internal product, versus if you are using, for example, in customer needs also, if you are making it open source itself, like you are making it free, you are not charging anything, obviously you can do that. If you take some part of things from some of the open source, and then you make things around, wrapper around it. But for example, if you are taking a code from somewhere and you are putting it on your product and selling it readily, then it could be a problem, because there is some MIT licensing, or there are different types of licensing that you have to read in their copyrights issues, which they usually mention over there. So based on that, like for example, some open source are fine ki haan. For example, languages, like you can use any of the language in making your product, and you sell your product, any of it, they don't charge at all. Like they don't have a royalty scenes or any of those things. But some of the product, like for example Moodle, or there are a lot of open source products which have a licensing or a royalty scheme, that you have to pay a kind of a subscription to that, and then you can use it, and anywhere you can make a product out of it.
Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Akash. Next up, we have this question, how to get started with contributing to open source? Like for beginners, how can they start their journey?
Right. So I again said key, like think of a very small utility, like which you like you see around or you don't see around, or you feel it should be there. And it could be as small as, like a simple Linux command. So try to write a code that implements that utility, and then directly push it to GitHub. Like, this is like a very simplistic step, or like the first step to write a code and then putting it out open source to everybody, like to access anywhere. It's like, and it's like free of cost. So for example, anybody wants to use that utility is something that, like they would love to do that. Or for example, like maybe if you use Python or something, and you have a very good interest in machine learning and stuff, so try to automate some of the things that, for example, libraries that are written, so club 2 3 libraries and try to merge it one kind of a scene. Or like, for example, you want to make some mathematical expression which you find it's not there directly as a function, so you can do that. So writing your first level of code is obviously like interacting with GitHub. Like, whatever a small utility or function is something that you can use, or people you think can use, like for example, Grammarly kind of things. Like, these all are so Grammarly is very wide kind of thing, but just like, for example, if you write any random spelling, it will correct it. Some small basic utility, try to make it and then push it, and like write a proper readme to its documentation to it. Like end to end, you should be able to uh, uh, like you like people should understand what you have made out of it. So that becomes a, like first level of contribution in terms of open to all. Then the other type is majorly the people, for example, all of these communities. You join Google Summer of Code, like that is something, it's like is second way. Like, so for that, so go to Stack Overflow. I think like all of you might have heard about Stack Overflow. And there are always some problems when you are writing your code, you are solving through Stack Overflow. And if you find you want a new answer to whatever answers people have written, or what are the questions that, like any specific your interest level of thing, go and write those answers. Like, that is again a contribution, open source contributions for a lot of people, and it gives you a lot of royalty points which will affect your score or your profile in especially in Google Summer of Code or any of these communities. So writing even with Stack Overflow answer can be your first initiative of like open source contribution.
All right, great. So, next up, we have this question from Sonam. I had a doubt which language I should go for to contribute more and more to open source. I'm a sophomore and currently discovering the world of coding.
Okay, so I would say like language is never a, like language is something that is at initial step, it is never something that you should think of in terms of choosing a language. It's like whatever is right now is more like adaptable to you, easy to use, easy to access or know more about it. You have some people around who know that particular language. You have a lot of resources about it, you can learn those things faster, is something that you should start from. For example, if you know 3 4 languages already, then you are choosing, or like like taking one out of best out of it, and specifically like, or like you are specifically improving some functionality which has its best effect in that particular language, then this question comes up. So for example, if you are starting it off, I would say JavaScript or Python could be the first language where you can start your coding from. And if you want to, like go in that perspective, okay, like I also want to see that it's going for professional base, then you can choose Java. If you want to, like want a little functional, or you want to go a little different way wala zone, maybe you can go towards Haskell or Erlang kind of languages. And maybe if you want to go towards distributed system specifically, then you can use Golang. So if you have certain technological interest, you can choose in that way, or if you have some industrial, then like Java is good to go. And then if you want to start it off, like I would say JavaScript and Python would be great for you.
I hope that answers your question, Sonam. And since we are a little bit time bounded, so we are going to wrap up here with this last question. So, thank you for joining us, Pratyush, this evening and educating our audience. It was really informative session about open sourcing, and I reckon our audience really enjoyed it and found it thoroughly informative. I suppose you have also motivated a lot of us, including me, to kickstart our journey towards open sourcing, open source contributing. So again, thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you again and collab again with you. So
Great.
yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot. Thanks a lot.
okay.